Hello and welcome to today's event. My name is Christine Tabera and I'm a member of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce Small Business Council and CEO of LMVA Consulting. On behalf of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered today on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional land of the Ojibwe Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene nations, and homeland of the Red River Métis. June is National Indigenous History Month. This year's month is dedicated to the missing children, the families left behind, and the survivors of residential schools. It's important to commemorate the history, heritage, and diversity of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in Canada. We also want to take a moment to acknowledge the 215 children whose lives were lost in a former residential school in Kamloops, BC. Thank you for joining us today for our final Small Business Forum of the event season. 4 times a year, we come together to connect and hear from small business experts to address important issues facing your businesses. Today's forum is all about creating the inclusive, diverse, and equitable workplaces we all imagine and need. In simple terms, how do we create workplaces where everyone, no matter how they look, where they come from, or who they love, feels like they truly belong? As a business association, we have to acknowledge the businesses with diverse teams and inclusive workplaces promote greater employee engagement, innovation, resiliency, and secure 19% better financial outcomes than their counterparts who don't ensure inclusive workplaces. So what does a truly inclusive workplace look like? What are the barriers that exist in today's world? We need to assess these gaps and barriers employers face in creating a sustainable improvement plan of action to meet diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. This is why today we are here to learn and discuss with you how employers, organizations, and individuals can reassess how we can contribute to advancing equity in the workplace. To help us start this discussion, we have brought in a fantastic panel who we will be introducing shortly. Before we move on, I want to explain how this forum will work. Today's virtual programming is set to reflect your usual in-person forum experience. Following the panel, we will move into breakout sessions where you will have the opportunity to identify barriers that exist, share helpful resources, and help shape our future diversity programming. This is also your opportunity to connect with your community and other chamber members from your home or office. If you have technical issues today, please contact any of our chamber staff by the chat on the right-hand side. They are listed as WCC Help under the attendee list. We would like to thank our small business supporters, the Chamber's Plan, KPMG, and RBC. We really appreciate your support. We encourage you to get on social media to join in on the conversation using the hashtag WCCSmallBiz. I'm now going to pass it over to Sriraj Patel, Chair of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce and Vice President of Commercial Financial Services at RBC.
Thanks so much, Christine, and thank you to the entire Small Business Advisory Council for all you do in advocating for the small businesses community in our city. It is truly appreciated. As we begin to emerge from the pandemic, there are significant opportunities for all of us to ensure and foster continued innovation. The global backlash against disturbing events happening across our communities has activated a renewed urgency for business leaders everywhere to consider how their organizations are addressing inequity by creating meaningful change within the workplace. There's a magnified focus to embrace, support, and create environments and communities where everyone feels welcome. The pandemic led people to find new ways to do things and adopt new ways of thinking. Focusing on creating and maintaining a more diverse and inclusive workplace can lead to more productive and engaged employees, increased customer satisfaction, and improved competitiveness and financial performance. So with that, I'm grateful to all of you for joining us here today and helping fuel these conversations. I'm honored to be here today to introduce to you our host and a good friend of mine, Ogo Okumbwa, co-owner of Zuike. Ogo's love of sports, entrepreneurship, clothing, and community has led to the start of Zuike. Zuike, a premium athletic apparel brand, focuses on fit, clean designs, and utilizing the best in comfort fabrics. With over 20 years experience in the team apparel industry and 25 years coaching basketball, has inspired Ogo's deep passion in seeing the community unite and grow. He believes that with a strong community, the world can Zuike. Enjoy today's event and welcome, Ogo.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks for being here. Thanks for allowing me to be part of an unbelievable forum here, talking about diversity, inclusion, and equity. I like to call this the kitchen, and it's where we're going to cook up some ideas and start to talk about how we can progress forward and move forward in the way our community and our businesses grow. But before we do that, in my kitchen today is going to be two lovely guests, and I'm going to first start off by introducing the lovely Natalie Bell. Natalie Bell is a Senior Human Resource Consultant at Acuity HR Solutions, CEO. And most people will think CEO in a certain way, but of course, in true Natalie style, it's creative, energetic, and original. And she is the CEO of PegCityLovely. Natalie is an energetic HR leader who prides herself in fostering meaningful relationships, organizations to help them get the best out of their people. With over 20 years of progressive HR experience and entrepreneurial passion, Natalie demonstrates confidence in identifying a variety of people-related situations and providing innovative solutions to the businesses she supports. We'd love to welcome you, Natalie, my good friend Natalie. How are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful.
Lovely. Next up, coming into the kitchen to chop it up with us a little bit today here is Ollie Backstrom. He is president and CEO of SCE LifeWorks. I don't know, is Ollie here yet? Just want to make sure.
Just waiting to get him. We're just waiting to get him. So feel free to introduce him and then maybe start with Natalie until we get him.
Sounds great. SCE LifeWorks is a charitable nonprofit organization that helps with developmental disabilities find and keep employment in Winnipeg. Ollie will be celebrating his 27th anniversary with SCE LifeWorks this summer. Ollie has been actively involved in the supported employment movement in Canada, with a keen interest in school to work transitions for young people, developing disabilities, spearheading development, and the first two project search sites in Canada here in Winnipeg. Ollie is currently a board member of Abilities Manitoba, past board member of the Canada Association for Supported Employment, past steering committee, member of Barrier Free Manitoba, past executive member of the Manitoba Supported Employee Network. Wowzers, that is a list of stuff and great work in the community here. And we'd love to welcome Ollie, and hopefully he'll be able to pop up over here pretty soon. But how about we just jump right into this, young Miss Bell. How are you doing? How are things, and how is the good world treating you?
All is well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to everyone who has joined today, all 65 of you, I believe. I'm really excited to get into some discussion on this topic because I think it's just become so very trendy that we never really get to the nitty gritty of it. And so I'm looking forward to not only hopefully getting some interesting comments and feedback and questions from those attending today, but also sharing some of my experiences so folks can have a really good perspective on what it has looked like for me in the last however many years working in my working years. So let's see, I've been working for over 30 years, and 20 of that has been in HR. So I would say I have some experience that I can partake on to other folks today. But, being in HR, I've been able to see many different aspects or lack thereof of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I could probably write a book on quite a few of my stories that I have. Not a lot that I will share today, but Definitely within being an in-house corporate HR professional, I've seen a lot of things. And now being a consultant, I am able to use a lot of that expertise from my toolkit to assist organizations with some of their needs in that area. And then, of course, from the content creation side, being able to chat with people on a day-to-day basis about things that are regularly happening to people in their workplaces, and being able to share some of my advice online on Instagram and LinkedIn and wherever else has been really helpful. So again, I'm really looking forward to the discussion, and Oli's there. So
yeah, Oli, welcome, Oli. Yes, we are. Of course, I called this the kitchen. We are going to chop up a meal for many people, and we're going to break out into our separate rooms later on, and we're going to cook up some more discussion. But tell us a little bit, how are things going with you, and how is your world and industry kind of working out? And give us a little synopsis.
Sure. Things are going great. You can hear me all right?
You betcha. We hear you loud and
Sorry
clear.
for the technical issues. I was trying to find my way into the kitchen.
Yeah, lovely.
So yeah, I'm CEO of SCE LifeWorks. We're a charitable nonprofit organization. I've been working here since 1994. I started as a direct support professional and supporting a young man who, with a significant disabilities, who had just transitioned out of an institution. So my first work in this world was experiencing an inclusive world with this young man for the first time, and then moved on from there. So I've been really fortunate to work in this world of supporting people with intellectual disabilities and autistic people to find employment and their valued place in the community for a number of years now.
That is awesome. Well, now that we've kind of touched a little bit about that, I know, Natalie, you kind of mentioned some of the, you could write a book of your trials and tribulations, and I bet you, Oli, as you've 27 years, I know both of you guys probably have a good novel you can later on write, and we can find on Amazon. But for right now, how about we start off with Natalie? Kind of tell us a little bit about some of the hardships and difficulties in transitioning, and I'd like to see it maybe on two sides. Not only as now you've kind of moved up in your career, but maybe even some of the challenges that come when you are just coming up in your career, and kind of give us a little insight in that.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things I will say is that as in my childhood, and although you may have heard this in your childhood as well, but I was always told by my parents that you will always have to work 5 times harder than anyone else. And I would say, why? And they would say, because of the color of your skin. And so that has always been a part of my subconscious. It's always been something that I'm in a position where I'm constantly needing to prove myself, because not only as a woman, but as a Black woman. And so there have been some really interesting challenges that have come my way in the beginning of my career when I was in sales, before I even started in HR. There were conversations with me. It's like, yeah, maybe you should stay on the phone and doing inside sales, because, most of the decision makers out there are, older white men, and it probably won't. It's just probably not going to work. And to be told that, knowing that you're progressing and being successful in what you think is your career, to be told that sticks with you. That is a part of your psyche. That becomes a part of how you choose to make moves every single day. And so those are experiences that you absolutely never forget. And so I was like, all right, then, well, I'm going to show you. I'll show you the inside sales and what I can do. And you're going to want to put me in front of people, that type of thing. But not everyone has that kind of gumption. Not everyone has that strength or supports even from your family or friends or whatnot. So that is one situation I had. I've had situations where there are people who I will go for an interview, or I would have gone for an interview, and I'll be sitting in the reception area and automatically assuming that I am applying or interviewing for a a different role, perhaps not a professional role, if you will, not for an HR role. I must be there for perhaps reception or something else. And having people actually say that to my face. I literally, as I said, I have example upon example upon example. It would take up this entire time. So I don't want to do that. But from, people wanting to touch my hair or actually putting their hands in my hair, people who, will say, you are an HR professional, a Black woman HR professional, and here's another HR professional who may be Caucasian or white, we should say, and not having the same ability to have the same similar interview questions or interview process because I am a Black woman. There are so many different examples that to this day continue to happen. And so diversity, equity, inclusion, and as we get into what those definitions mean, are so key for our world to move forward, never mind our workplaces.
That is great. And, it's funny when you say that. My parents, exact same thing, immigrants that have come in, and they made a conscious decision to call me Ogo Okumabwa. And when growing up, you wonder, with all your friends, and I grew up in South St. Vital. So South St. Vital, raised all my life, and people would be like, oh, Ogo Pogo, and then, the last name, Okumabwa. To me it's easy, but I know it's not an easy last name. But to hear it butchered most of your life as you kind of grow up, and you wonder, hey, Mom, why don't you just call me Tim? Why don't you, and as I've gotten older, I started to realize sometimes when I put in a resume, people might think I'm an immigrant, and I've just moved here, and might think that I might not speak English, or I might not be able to do certain things, or might not know the territory because my parents have just sort of decided to name me Ogo. But it's kind of crazy as you grow up and how you learn to deal and navigate kind of through all these things. Ollie, I don't know if you've had some of these same sort of issues as you've grown up, but also when developing your business. I mean, you're a serious businessman here that has dedicated his life to giving opportunity to, and I think the hot topic, right now, everybody, of course, is, diversity. And when we talk about diversity, we talk about diversity in color. We talk about diversity primarily, even when I think of it, when we first talked about it, I was not even thinking about, if someone had a disability, or what is the opportunity for, people that might not have, same opportunities or different things like that. And I think that it's great that we're talking a little bit broader in terms of diversity instead of just the hot topic, which tends to be race all the time right now. And that's the quick button stuff. But Ollie, tell us a little bit how you kind of, when you decided you were starting your business, and how you were going to develop this platform to talk and touch all areas, and how are the things that you've placed in there to allow you to be diverse in terms of your hiring.
Thank you. First of all, I wish I could say I started this organization. It was actually a group of founding parents who wanted to make sure their sons and daughters with intellectual disabilities or autistic sons and daughters had a value place in the community. And I just happened to luck into being connected to this organization when I was hired 27 years ago. But my position, I'm a privileged white able-bodied man, and I've been on a journey when it comes to the people we support, trying to develop a lens or have eyes to see what kind of barriers or challenges are facing people with intellectual disabilities or autistic people who have been historically disenfranchised, for generations. And that has been a journey for me, first of all, even, finding out that there were people who were working in the community doing great jobs earlier in my career, often more what would be considered menial work, a little bit more on the cleaning side, for example. And it took me a while to see first of all, celebrating, wow, that's great. People are working in the community. But then being challenged with that, Erin Riley, who's the founder of Project Search, she works out of Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, challenged me with this. And she said something to the effect of, that cleaning work, that is honorable work. The world isn't going to turn properly if someone isn't doing that work well. But we're not honoring the people we serve to find employment if that is all we collectively aspire for people. And that brought to me the realization that the people we serve to find employment are capable of working in all sectors, doing all kinds of jobs, even complex jobs. And so then it becomes a question of building those points of reference, even for the imaginations of the people we support, to see what they can be capable of. But we have to build the points of reference with the business community too, because they will have the same challenges I had. They only have so many points of reference, and when it comes to people with intellectual disabilities, they might think of Special Olympics, or they might think of the odd person they've seen doing a cleaning task or stocking shelves. And once again, that is terrific work. But if it's a business that doesn't happen to be involved in that kind of work, then it's hard for them to connect the dots. So our job is to work with those businesses and develop those points of reference, have a curiosity about their work and understanding of their processes and their needs, and help them get connected to great employees who can solve their problems and be great, long-lasting employees who happen to have an intellectual disability or happen to be autistic.
That's awesome. There's so many points that you kind of made throughout that, through this conversation, but one of the ones that really stuck with me when you started off by saying you identified yourself, I'm a white male, all right? And in your landscape, you understand who you are, but when working with your people or trying to understand what, say, another community needs or wants, you almost want to take yourself out of your body and you want to put yourself in their body. And basically being, when people talk about being an ally, they talk about all these different things. In order to be a good ally, or, let's talk about being a simple parent, when your kid gets hurt, they get their knee scraped and you're like, oh my gosh, suck it up. But really what you want to do is you want to come down and understand, for them, that boo-boo is the biggest thing that's probably happened to them in the last week, right? And you want to try to learn to empathize with them and understand where they're coming from. And I think that's one of the greatest things when you were telling the story about, let's not limit them to a certain task. It's understanding that they can be so much more because we're the ones limiting them. They're not limited. They're limitless, right? And we need to start to think outside of what we think a certain community has the ability of doing. And that's one of the biggest parts of, when we talk about diversity and understanding and having empathy, that to me was just a great thing that you mentioned. And Natalie, because you are in the HR world, I've spoken to you a little bit about HR here at our own company, and there's so many small, minute things. And when we're a brand new company, kind of trying to grow and develop some legs, and the things a lot of people and new employees and even people with incredibly established businesses sometimes overlook is the HR. And give us some tips in terms of maybe how can we actually develop great tools in creating a diverse workplace and being leaders in this area.
Sure. Well, first, I would love to hear from the attendees in the chat as to what they believe diversity, equity, and inclusion mean. Because I think we really need to understand what they mean before we can tackle what to do with it. And so if there's anyone who's willing to post that in the chat, please do so. I'd love to see some of your responses. The biggest thing with diversity, equity, and inclusion is that it is not a checkbox. It is not something that, hey, we did some DE&I work, check, we're done. That cannot be the thought. It is an ongoing process that needs to happen within any and every organization, regardless of size. And so that is the very first step. Do not think of it as an item that you check off. The one thing about diversity is that we've been conditioned, if you will, to think of diversity as an ethnicity. Honestly, if you really think about it, it's like, okay, what do your people look like where you work? So we've got a Black person over there, okay. We've got, someone from the Asian community over there, okay. Got a couple of women, okay, we're diverse. Done. Check, 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 check. No, it's not just about the appearance of it. It's diversity of thought, right? It's acquired diversity. It is the women, it is the two-spirit, LGBTQ+. It is those who are non-binary. It is the people who are immigrants who have come here, and that diversity of thought, right? It's the people with intellectual disabilities. It's everybody. And the only way an organization is going to understand truly what that diversity, equity, and inclusion means to them is by getting that feedback. You have to do an assessment of your business. You have to do an assessment of what do we have here for a diversity? What are the demographics? What are those categories? Equity now, that piece is a little different because that is the mechanism, in my mind, the mechanism that allows you to advance with the diverse group of people, right? So your compensation, your abilities to go for training and promotion and those types of things. And then inclusion, of course, is the sum of all parts. Inclusion is that true sense of belonging, where I feel and you feel and you feel and you feel and you feel that you belong in this workplace, that you are able to share your voice, that it is open, that it is safe, that you can be collaborative, all of those things where I can show up to work and be who I am. That is a truly inclusive workplace to me. How do you do that? First and foremost, like I said, it's that assessment of your workplace. It is talking to your existing employees, getting their feedback. This isn't, hey, I'm the CEO and we need to get some DE&I done here. So yeah, I'm just gonna say we're gonna do this, and hey, we're done. No, it is an inclusive process that includes all of your employees. They have to be invested, they have to be involved. It is them, right? An inclusive workplace is all about the people. And so we need to get their feedback. We need to assess what their thoughts are, what's going on, and what do they see? What are some of the processes and policies and procedures that they feel perhaps are not inclusive? And you need to gather that information. And then you also need to train. We need to get some education. We need to take some of those courses in respectful workplace training, unconscious bias, anti-racism. We need to train and learn the different aspects that we think we know, but have actually been curated for us in simple ways to understand what inclusive workplaces can look like. There are so many different aspects for your business to do that, and I'm available, just so you know. But there, I think people get caught up in, oh my gosh, this is the most daunting task ever. We have to do diversity, equity, inclusion. What? Oh my goodness, this is, we have to do all this theory and this and this and this and get this consultant in who's gonna. It does not have to be that difficult. Start small. Start somewhere. And that can be with that simple survey of your staff. It could be, again, those, online training for yourself and your staff about what What are the basics of DE&I? What are those basics of unconscious bias? What are those aspects of respectful workplace that we need to know to ensure that we continue to be an inclusive workplace? I could talk for a long time, so I'm just gonna flip on over to Oli there.
Oli, yes, Oli, I wanted to ask you with Natalie mentioning, systems and you do a lot of placements of individuals that are going out there. What are things that employees should start to look for and start to understand a little bit when you're out there and you've kind of worked with a number of businesses? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think when it comes to people with intellectual disabilities and autistic people especially, and I think this could apply for everything that we're talking about today. My colleagues at a organization much like ours in Ottawa, it's called Live, Work, Play. In their work, they came up with a great phrase that really captures an issue that is at the crux of it for businesses, I think, and for us. If we're not intentionally including people, we may be accidentally excluding people. And so when it comes to people with intellectual disabilities and autism, for example, I don't think the vast majority of businesses intend to exclude anyone. They will post positions and say anyone could apply. But there are unintended barriers to being hired. And some of them may be, is it an online application process? Is it a timed application process? Even the interview process. Part of what we do when we're supporting people and getting connected with a business is, I'll back up and say, many of the people we support are better at doing all kinds of tasks than I am. But I may be better at talking myself through an interview than the people we support are. So another way to say it is, the people we support are often better at showing people what they're capable of than telling people what they're capable of. So can we do something other than a traditional interview? Have a functional interview where that person has a chance to show you what they can do. Some of the other things that can be barriers are many businesses like to hire people who can do a little bit of everything or generalists. Some of the people we support are great generalists, but many of the people we support are much better specialists. So, if we can come into your business and find out what your business needs are, you have a list of 20 overall tasks that you have to have completed. We'll be able to introduce you often to a job seeker who can rock 10 of those tasks, clear them off the deck so your other employees can focus what they really need to focus on. And so there'll be specialists in the areas that you need to have completed. So at the end of the day, we don't want you to make a token hire or a hire that doesn't make any business sense to you. We want this hire to make business sense to you, but you might just have to think about how you're preconceiving your job descriptions a little bit, or even how you're hiring people, to think about, are there unintended barriers to hiring a person with an intellectual disability or autistic people that I hadn't even thought about? So, and that's part of what we can help businesses work through.
That's absolutely awesome. I think it's, and the way you say it, I'm from a sports background, but I play basketball. So on a team, you don't want too many guys that are the jack of all trades. You have a guy sometimes that does the scoring for you, and then there's a guy that might just defend and rebound. And the more elite sometimes you are at that specific spot allows your actual overall team to grow and be way more successful as compared to have a whole bunch of people that can do a little bit of everything, but nothing really, really exceptional. And what you're saying there is awesome, because there's so many things that I think even ourselves that you definitely overlook. It might not be intentional, but I could have someone that is killing in a completely different area compared to what I would ever do. because they just know how to hone in on that skill and really take care of and allow your business to really grow and voila and grow and do this thing. So I think that's such an amazing piece that you say, because I think when everyone develops a business or you're at a corporation developing a team, there's no point of having everyone that does the exact same thing really well. And if I'm just a marketing and I have only marketing people, it's who's going to take care of my darn finance? I'm just things are going to go bad pretty fast, right? So it's pretty crazy. But I think that's such an amazing outlook.
I love your sports analogy, and I'm totally stealing it. I hope you don't mind.
You feel free to use that. We're in here cooking it up. We're chopping it up. The recipes are for everybody right now. And the group chat everywhere, we want to definitely use it as much as possible. We also, we did talk a little bit about diversity in terms of, let's say, like, race and color and everything. And now we've talked about it in a much broader sense. But I think it's also important when we talk about diversity, and I found this when we were going through a lot of the the Black Lives Matter marches and all the issues. Every company doesn't want to look bad, and you made a comment. Don't hire me just because you need to fill this role, and don't trot me out. I like to say, don't trot me out because I'm Black. Right. And every organization, I don't speak for all Black people. I speak for myself and things. I can maybe give you a little bit of insight, but I think it's such a great understanding in terms of, I think a lot of companies do it with, they have good intentions, but understand that you might not actually be doing the work on the back end, and when Black Lives Matter, if all of a sudden I'm just putting myself out on the thing just to prove that I'm diverse as a company, it actually falls a lot short when you're not doing the work on the back end, and people can really kind of sniff out that kind of fakeness. But I think in companies should really start to take a look at diversity. Looks like I'm Black and maybe I'm a great accountant, and instead of it just being on Black History Month that you trot me out, maybe I'm doing a speech about accounting where I'm actually strong and almost negating the fact that I'm Black and just realizing, hey, you know what? This is what our workforce looks like, unintentional, not because I'm trying to have a rally cry of the people that have my back. But I think that when you spoke about don't hire this individual just because you need to check off and feel like it, because that's unauthentic and it doesn't work for your organization. And then you can have the excuse to go back and say, oh, well, it didn't work. I think that you're absolutely right, where you want to use your pieces throughout your entire business. This is not just, we're not talking about being diverse and just so that you look good. We want to be diverse because it actually provides value to your business. Natalie, I think I want to bring you into this one because you get the double whammy, right? You get to be a visible minority and you get to be a lady in the workforce. And those prevent completely different challenges, as you would see that O and O here on the screen, Ollie and Ogo. We have our own different challenges out there. But I mean, as a woman in the workforce, and I think you mentioned earlier, proving yourself tends to be a little bit different than, sometimes if we both walked in there and sometimes someone just takes me at my word. And you might have to be like, oh, go through it a little bit. Can you maybe give us a little bit of insight in terms of kind of the things that you've had, and then some of the ways that maybe other people can, navigate and deal with it and get to where you have been?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I love that whole accountant piece because, or that whole scenario, because that recently happened in the past few years to myself, right? Where I may have been the HR manager or an HR professional who happens to be Black. First and foremost, HR all the way. Who happens to be Black? Who happens to be a woman? It's really about the fact that policies don't cut it. When you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's really the work, like you said, it's getting that work done and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It is so key. I think people are so apprehensive because, oh, this is going to bring up some conversations that maybe we may not want to have. Yes, because they have to happen. They have to happen in order for change to occur. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It may be very temporary, but until you get into it, you're never going to know. As a Black woman, though, I can tell you that, you know, society does some interesting things. Everyone's seen Jerry Springer and all these kind of things. So if I'm going to be upset or something, I'll never forget there was one situation where I didn't agree with something that was happening in a team environment, and someone decided to do, oh, you're going to do one of these, Natalie? You're going to do one of these, Natalie, right? Would you have said that to my white coworker beside me? Would you have done that to them? So I'm not allowed to bring up my feelings of a differing opinion because I'm going to be seen as the stereotypical wagging finger neck.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Neck, right? Oh, no, you didn't. And then all of a sudden I'm speaking a different lingo and dialect and whatnot. And so that has been my experience in pretty much every workplace I've ever worked, ever. And society has brought us to that point, to a point, so that, you know, I'm constantly thinking to myself, well, as a woman, they're already thinking I'm emotional. We've done that as well. As a Black woman, I'm now going to rage and be very loud and obnoxious because that's what's put out there. Same for you, Ogo. As a Black man, the minute you raise your voice a little bit, what are you? Angry Black man. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen, right? So yes, in the workplaces, we have to remember that a lot of the things that we are biased about, a lot of the things that society has shown us in TV and movies and all those things is not real. It is not real. I, at the end of the day, am a human being who is an HR queen. I will say that. I'm joking. Who is a lover of human resources. And I happen to be Black and I happen to be a woman. And those two factors do not affect my ability to provide you with the utmost exceptional HR service.
That's awesome. Awesome. How about you all? Same question, but in a different way, because I think as Natalie has mentioned how she's viewed you or the older white male, right? Where some people would be a lot more defensive if you were to say, "Hey, Ogo, Some people are like, "Oh, he's racist. Oh, he's not." But you're just like, I'm just trying to lead my group, right? And that understanding, a lot of people forget in terms of diversity, needs to happen both ways. We need to have the argument. It's like a good marriage, right? A good marriage actually works when your wife, which at times I get myself in good trouble, right? But in order for us to grow, I've got to learn from what I've done. And I didn't put the toilet seat down. I put it down the next time. I show that I've changed, and now my wife's happy with me, right? Gold star. Now, Ollie, how about yourself? Like, how do you find that dynamic, as it's a little bit different for you, for sure, than Natalie?
Well, yeah, I will flip the tables a little bit. And, I've been talking about, things in terms of the people we support and the job seekers we support. But as an organization, we have about 90 employees. And, I'm on a journey of, trying to remove the shingles from my eyes, to see things that my lived experience alone won't necessarily let me see, in terms of the reality and the barriers and the generational trauma that other people have experienced. So, when I think of the journey that we're on with our organization, and how diverse our workforce is, I think our workforce is fairly diverse, fairly reflective of the community it serves. It is disproportionately women, and that has been a historical fact. A helping profession, I guess that isn't a shocker. historically, I think it's been, people are underpaid typically in the work that we do. And so there is that's another kind of systemic issue that, I have to try to keep on pressing. Part of where we have made strides as an organization, I think, in the last 10 years, the people we serve are much more reflective of the community we serve. I think we have some work to do to further diversify our workforce. I think of, recruiting of Indigenous peoples, and it comes back to, our, we have public postings, and the people who apply, and we hire the employees who apply, or the candidates who apply. But we need to be, I think that's our next big challenge as an organization, honestly, is how can we be more purposeful? How can we challenge ourselves with that phrase? If we're not intentionally including people, we may be accidentally excluding them. Because I know the people we serve will be better served if we can further, make sure we have the workforce that reflects the diversity of the people we serve and the community, including Indigenous people. That's one area where I think we really have to work on.
That's awesome. Then when we talked about, diversity and serving our community, and I think there was a comment about that in our chat also, what diversity looks like. And I think when we think about serving our community, I think a lot of times when we get on these forums, we forget that, I think a lot of times we forget that we're every day, it's not all business 24/7. A lot of our friendship group and how people get hired, we forget a lot of it has to do with the context and what your social group looks like. So I might get a recommendation from a friend, and if all of my friends are only Black, my employees tend to look Black. You know what I mean? If you're in another industry and you're like, oh, I've got this great so-and-so, and all you might say, oh, you know what, I don't know who all your friend group is, but if you tend to have a diverse friend group, you tend to sometimes have a diverse outlook in terms of how, people that might work with you, or even the way that you approach people, because you might have a better understanding of what culture looks like, what culture doesn't look like. Back to my basketball reference, I hate to go back, but this is where I've lived many of my days. As a coach, we actually found that we would coach certain kids a certain way. And you start to coach, you want to be fair. So, you're ripping, you're on kids all the time. And there was once a kid that you would discipline, but the kid, when he wouldn't look in your eyes. He would turn away. He wouldn't look in your eyes when you're reprimanding him. And in our culture, talking about North America, we take that as a sign of disrespect, right? And over, another coach would say, he just doesn't look at me. This kid he's a jerk. He's just disrespecting me, this and the other. And then at one moment, we stopped and we asked the coach, well, do you realize his background? And in his background, when an elder is yelling at him, he is not to make eye contact. He is supposed to look away, keep his head down, and receive the message, and then do what he's supposed to do. And at that moment, you start to realize as a coach, and this is no different than a manager or anyone within your building and your organization, you start to realize, holy, we all come from a lot of different ways, and we have a lot of unique traits that allow us to operate within our household. If I gave something to my dad with my left hand, I am going to get in big trouble because that's Nigerian culture, right? And that's something that you sometimes have to, when you get out into the workplace and out to different community things, you need to understand that, we don't all have the exact same social norms. And exactly you're saying, we got to go out and you got to really learn people, understand people, take that barrier down in terms of saying, Ogo's way is the only way you can live life, right? And for me, and not to say that here I'm talking, but it's not the easiest thing to do. But when you identify that, I have blinders in certain areas, and you can take the time, like you said, that hey, these are the areas that are weak. I might not be the strongest in them, but by me identifying them and trying to work on them, how can your workplace not become diverse? How can your workplace not become stronger? How can you not become a better leader just because you're way more willing to take information from other people and apply that to your everyday life and as just an independent, forget about business, forget about anything. If you just kind of apply that to your own individual being, it makes things so much better. I mean, there's just, you become way stronger. You can become a leader. You can speak on things or at least identify and try helping in areas without looking, like you're just doing it for your Instagram likes or so on and so forth. As you can see, I've become a big Instagram user in my older age nowadays. How about you, Ollie?
Oh, I'm a little bit more of a Twitter guy myself, but
yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't got there yet.
For better and for worse.
Yes. So, with that being said, few final questions. We'll start back with Ollie. I'm going to ask you, what do you think does a truly diverse workplace look like, in your opinion?
A truly diverse workforce truly reflects the community it is serving, and a business is going to be well served for a multitude of reasons. Natalie already mentioned it, just a diversity of perspective that is going to bring more imagination and creativity to the solutions to the business problems. But even, an outward-facing business that has a customer base, you really have to have a business, a workforce that reflects the community you serve, because you need the customers in their totality to be able to come to your business, see themselves in your business, and that has an impact on your bottom line if that is not reflected. We know, and I saw the slide earlier come up, 87% of Canadians are more likely to take their spending dollar to a business that hires inclusively and has a workforce that reflects the community they serve. So there are all kinds of reasons. When I think about people with intellectual disabilities and autism, what we're striving for isn't solely the place where the person is working, collecting a paycheck, but it's that place where a person's making connections, meaningful connections, that place where they're invited out for a drink after work, and included into all those social aspects connected to work that might not be directly related to the tasks at work. And when we find that business and make that connection, that is what enriches all of our lives. That's what we aspire for the people we serve. And that in turn enriches, everyone in that workplace, if they can be purposeful about that and start nailing it.
That's awesome. So good. How about you, young Natalie?
Not so young anymore, but yes.
I don't want to say that out here.
It's quite all right. I would say just to wrap it up, obviously I concur with things that you have both said. That intention, that purposefulness is so very key in your business, in how you communicate, in the language you use, in the terminology you use, in your policies, in your website, in everything that you do. That it's not just about, we need to make sure it's only our recruitment process that we look at. It has to be everything. It's not just your recruitment process. What about those internal policies once someone already gets there? What do those look like? What are the barriers for promotion? What are the barriers for training? How are career development aspects looked at? Those types of things. And go even farther. What about our supply chain? The vendors we use, the third parties we align with? Are they diverse? Are they inclusive? How do we make sure that we are connecting all aspects of our business with the premise of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It hits every aspect of the business. And like I said, policies just don't cut it. You have to approach it with curiosity and courage. You have to approach this topic, and it's a topic, with a curiosity and courage, because again, there will be some discomfort, and you have to be able to have some strength to deal with that. But when you include and engage your employees in that discussion, you will be amazed at how easier it will move forward because of their engagement. And that's where it has to happen. So I mean, again, that inclusivity is going to come from people being able to come to work, be who they are, as they are, being able to have a voice, not feel that they have to shy away or whatnot, having people understand different perspectives. And of course, that education and training needs to be a constant part of business. It cannot just be, we're going to do this one course and we're good. We're done. No, it is ongoing. It needs to be refreshed on an perhaps semi-annual or annual basis. Do different types of training. Like I said, have respectful workplace training one time, then you're going to do unconscious bias training another time. You need to constantly be, tilling. You're constantly, going in the soil and doing it. Like, it's the same stuff, but you're constantly, what is it? What is the word I'm trying to use? Is it rototill? What is it?
Yeah,
mulch?
you're
Whatever.
yeah.
We're talking about kitchen
Well, we're
gardening.
in the kitchen right now. You're mixing it up.
Mixing it up in the bowl. Yes. Okay, sure.
That's another great analogy.
So it's, yeah,
also,
right?
great analogy. Didn't need to.
Yeah. It's something that doesn't stop. There isn't an end goal, is my ultimate sentiment here. It's not an end goal. It's always ongoing, and it's happening. And look for those opportunities to collaborate, connect with other businesses, to get some ideas, get creative. Like Oli said about the recruitment process, change up your recruitment, try it out. What's it gonna do if you try it out? People get so scared. We're in these siloed boxes. We need to be innovative and creative. And like I said, approaching it with curiosity and courage, and you will start to see change. It may be minute in the beginning, but you will start to see it once that starts, once it gets going. Yeah.
One of the best things when you guys have both kind of mentioned it, instead of making it a task, make it part of your fiber. Yes. Where we're talking about being in the kitchen, and every great meal that you've ever had requires so many other elements to make whatever that dish is. It wouldn't be just fun if cake was just flour, no water, no taste, nothing, right? We want to put the ingredients, and the more you experiment, the more, a good cook is always experimenting, always finding different ways to make things better. And the more it's part of your being, the more successful you're going to be, the more more compassionate, the more enjoyable life can actually become, because then a lot of these things, these stresses are definitely kind of left out of the way, and you're starting to think in a much more progressive mindset that allows so many other people to be involved. And Ollie, you made a great comment about, here at VK, we talk about the lounge, right? And when we developed our actual business, it wasn't about just being on a basketball court or being on a court, because our best actual moments in sport, in every type of work, is actually the drinks. The drinks after, the drinks before, the time that you actually spend as a human to connect with another human is actually where your greatest connections and understanding and the best team sort of development happens. And when you mention that, in terms of, if your employees get to go out and have drinks, and they get to understand, and they don't get too wild, but I mean, sometimes a wild night can actually bring you closer. But in a certain way that you're like, wow, you know what? This is what we are trying to achieve, right? We're trying to achieve a fiber that allows me to understand another person. And I think you knocked it out of the park with that saying, because that's really what everybody, whether you have an issue or not, you're all trying to get a connection, whether it's at work or away from work. We're getting close to the end of the program here with all of us here in the kitchen, chopping it up before everyone goes into their little micro kitchens and starts to cook up their own little ideas. You guys have any final comments? Ollie, Natalie, please leave us with some wonderful words of wisdom.
Yeah, I would just say it's really about that communication, having those productive, meaningful conversations about what diversity, equity, and inclusion means to you as a person and what it means to you in your business. You have to start with that communication. Otherwise, you'll never know. And you'll be surprised at how many people will start to chime in and give their perspectives, and you'll constantly be learning. And that is the starting point for getting it going. And again, if you are a small business who is perhaps unable to facilitate that yourself, there are plenty of people available in the city who can help facilitate those discussions for you, at least to get you started for your business as well. It's all about that communication.
Ollie?
I'll just add, something I found out in 2018, Department of Families, they, basically did a survey of Manitobans who are connected to community living disability services. So essentially adults who have intellectual disabilities. And they found out that 5% of Manitobans with intellectual disabilities earn at least minimum wage and work at least 20 hours per week. And that means 95% don't. And that is a ton of squandered potential. And I'll say, I honestly don't think the main issue is the business community not getting it and not wanting to. And, I think there are some questions about how, but the question is very rarely if. We can help you with the how. I think there are all kinds of other systems issues, to be honest with you, about why there is such a squandering of potential of people with intellectual disabilities. But we'd love to, there are other great organizations in Winnipeg and beyond, Connect Employment Services, Premier Personnel, WASO, that will help you on your journey. SC LifeWorks, better mention us. Help you on your journey if you want to diversify your workforce and figure out the path forward that's going to make sense for you. And we promise we won't suggest anything that doesn't make sense to you as a business.
That's awesome. That is great. Well, we are coming close to the end here. We got, I think Christine's going to kind of join us here in a second, but I thank you guys so much for taking a little bit of time to be here in the chamber kitchen as we chopped it up and talked about a couple different recipes and different ideas and things that allow us to become much better human beings, create better inclusive and diverse workplaces. And I'm excited that we had the conversation, and I wish and I employ everybody here that's watching and listening to continue to have these conversations. I think both of you have talked about collaborations, and I think collaborations are some of the greatest ways, even though you might have a competing company, it's a great way to start to pool resources, think uniquely, and allow yourselves to get out into a community and understand, what are the community needs and wants. And we thank you again so much for taking the time. And please, people out there, go and talk to Natalie, talk to Ollie. They'll be able to help you out in the industry and get you to the right places. Christine, now back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ogo. That's all the time we have for our panel discussion. So first and foremost, I want to thank Ogo, Natalie, and Ollie for sharing your expertise and stories with us today. I think it was a great start of a good kitchen conversation. These are going to be very helpful and beneficial for our small businesses as we look ahead to the future.